Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I am doing a video that was requested when I did my first line of upcoming fantasy series videos. So basically I had seen a video by another booktuber who had looked at his TBR and read the first line of each book and then ranked those books based on which one sounded most appealing or like how compelling that opening line was. And so then I did that video for a bunch of fantasy books that were on my TBR. And it was something. It was really something. Though, it did not deliver what I had hoped to receive, but the video that came out of it was at least entertaining. So I did upload it. And something that a couple people had asked for and that I thought was a really fun idea was to go back and do that with my favorite books. So I have gathered the books that I put on my top 10 fantasy standalone video, minus 2 of them because I didn't own them, so I don't have the opening lines. And I could have looked up the opening line, but then I wouldn't have been able to put them in the stack. So I omitted 2, which were Nation by Terry Pratchett and Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong. And I just substituted a couple more books and then added in a few of my favorite books from the last couple of years so that I would have 15 in total. So that's what we're going to do right now. I have them here in a random order. We are going to go through them and I'm going to rank them by opening line. And I am afraid because I often talk about how much I value prose in the books that I enjoy. And so now I'm going to go and do this and be confronted with the reality that the opening lines are crap, which is what happened in the last video. But hopefully my favorites won't let me down and the opening lines will not in fact be crap. They will be brilliant and I will be vindicated in doing this. Anything else that I wanted to say first? I don't think so. We're just going to jump in. I'm going to start doing it. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So one thing that makes this a little bit harder when it's a book that you have read is that you have context for the line, right? So some of the books that I used in the last video, I think that in context, those first lines might come to mean a lot more. And this was one reason that I left off a very obvious choice for my favorites list. So I didn't include the Gunslinger, which has that iconic first line that every fantasy fan knows, because the line is great, but it's great because you've read the Gunslinger and you've read the Dark Tower series and you know everything that that line signifies. It's not on its own, it doesn't hold that same resonance. And so for all of the books that I'm going to talk about today, I have the benefit of context. And so I don't think it's going to be as pure a ranking for whatever that is worth, but I'm still going to do it. And I'm going to hope that all of my mass market paperbacks do not end up on the bottom of this stack because we might have a disaster this time. But we will start. So here we go. Controversial first pick, the Stephen King book that I love and everybody else in the world hates, The Talisman. This is the first Stephen King book that I ever read. I think I am correct in saying that, and I have not read it in a long time. I continuously say that I'm going to reread it because so many people on BookTube hate it, and I kind of want to know if I will still love it. I kind of also don't want to know, but I probably will end up rereading it soon. But the first line for The Talisman, let's open it up. It's Stephen King. It could be literally anything. And I don't remember what the first line is. All right. On September 15th, 1981, a boy named Jack Sawyer stood where the water and the land come together, hands in the pockets of his jeans, looking out at the steady Atlantic. Not terrible. Not terribly compelling either. A very average, bland first line. Gives us some context. We know that there's a boy, he's looking brutally into the ocean. I know that this is a coming-of-age novel. You probably can tell from the back that it's a coming-of-age novel. So it's a very appropriate coming-of-age first line. I'm going to put that one down right there. Nothing fabulous. But nothing traumatizing, which I feel like is a win when you're cracking open a Stephen King novel. The second book is Swords Point by Ellen Kushner, a book I talk about all the time that I think you should read. It is a fantasy of manners. And basically the only thing fantastic about it is the setting. There's not a lot of magic here. It is about swordsmen and it's about a town where all political and social feuds get settled through swords play. And we follow an expert fencer throughout this book. So the first line in this one is, Snow was falling on Riverside, great white feather puffs that veiled the cracks in the facades of the ruined houses, slowly softening the harsh contours of the jagged roof and fallen beam. It's pretty good. It's not bad. And look at George R. R. Martin. He has, on the front of this book, a unique blurb. Swords Point has an unforgettable opening, and it just gets better from there. Which is something different than fantasy as it ought to be written, which I feel like is glowing praise from George R. R. Martin. So, I mean, it's pretty good. Not bad. The language is poetic. It kind of sets you up, I think, for the type of setting we're getting. I'm going to put it above the Talisman. We might have to come back and give it another reread in a little bit, but at this point, it is at the top. Next, we have my very well-read copy of Watership Down. This is probably my favorite book of all time. It is certainly the book that I have loved the longest, and I don't fully remember what the first line is, so we're gonna go in and see. But this is a book about rabbits, talking rabbits, which is a Brian Lee Durfee shout out. His review of Watership Down is my favorite booktube video of all time. Chapter 1 is called The Notice Boards. We're getting into the good stuff now. So the first line of Watership Down, the primroses were over. Well, in fairness, and I'm not just saying this to stick up for Watership Down, I guess I am saying this to stick up for Watership Down. It's about rabbits, and it's telling us something about their season, their food. The primroses were over. It sounds kind of bleak, which, again, I don't know if you've ever read Watership Down, is a fitting opening because this book is kind of bleak and unexpectedly frightening. So I don't mind it. And probably because, like I said, I already love this book, but I'm going to give it an above the Talisman, because the Talisman is just a boy looking at the ocean. How many books can have a boy looking at the ocean? I feel like Watership Down tells us something else about the spirit of the book. This is a new one. This one was not on my top 10 fantasy list, only because I put out that list before I read this book, and that is Tagana by Guy Gavriel Kay, which has the honor of being one of the best standalone fantasy books that I have ever read, and also one of the fantasy books with the most beautiful writing that I have ever read. So Guy Gavriel Kay has beautiful prose. This is the only book of his that I have ever read, and I hope to continue on, but I don't remember what the opening line is. I remember that the opening of the book feels very distinct from the rest of the book. Like, it takes a bit for us to get into what Tagana is actually about, but I don't remember the precise opening line, but we'll see. There's a prologue, and I think in the last video I did include the prologue, so I took the first line from the prologue, so we will see. Prologue. Both moons were high, dimming the light of all but the brightest stars. Again, I feel like that's not bad. It's a very simple sentence. It doesn't tell us a lot, but it at least sets us up to be in a fantasy world. Like, there are two moons, which is automatically somewhat intriguing. You know that you are somewhere else, and they are dimming the light of all but the brightest stars, which I feel like is a little bit of like poetic intrigue. It is bringing you into the book. It is maybe getting your expectations ready for some sort of takeover or some sort of almighty force or power. So I am gonna read way too much into this line because I really love this book, and I am gonna say that is not bad. I feel like we're already doing a lot better than in the last video, but it could be because I am championing these books. You can let me know what you think. But I'm gonna put it above Watership Down, but below Swords Point, because I still think this had the nicest opening line. It didn't tell us like a ton about what was happening, but I felt like it was very atmospheric. It made me feel like I was set. The stage was set. I knew where we were. Next up, we have a kid's book. So this is Fortunately the Milk by Neil Gaiman, which is also well read. My kids and I have read this a million times, and it's a tiny, like, dinky little copy, so it's been put through the ringer. But this is the story about a dad who goes to find some milk for his kids and gets into a series of misadventures. And the very first line of the book is, There was only orange juice in the fridge. Poor, fortunately, the milk. And the second line is great. I'm going to read the second line. I'm not going to include it, but like the second line is so fun. Nothing else that you could put on cereal, unless you think that ketchup or mayonnaise or pickle juice would be nice on your Tostios, which I do not, and neither did my little sister, although she had eaten some pretty weird things in her day, like mushrooms in chocolate. Which I think is really delightful and quirky and really sums up what's great about this book. But Neil Gaiman, that's the second line, not the first line. So I'm sorry, fortunately, the milk, but I think you have to go under the Talisman for your perfectly serviceable, but not particularly exciting first line. And there's all the mass market paperbacks, and a lot of the rest of the books are large. So I really hope that some of them have worse lines than this, because if not, we're going to have a real leaning book situation here. Next, we have the Song of Achilles, which is my favorite modern book. It is a book that I have read, 8 or 9 times since it was released 10 years ago. I really love it. I know everybody really loves it now. I have loved it long and I have loved it well. And I think that the writing is particularly beautiful. I think I remember what the first line is, but I'm not 100% sure. So we will dive in and we will see where it goes. Chapter 1. My father was a king and the son of kings. Yes, that is the first line. I feel like this ended up on I don't know if it was a Book Jeopardy episode. Like it ended up somewhere then, and it had that line in my brain. It existed in there. That's not particularly great, right? Like that's not a great line. And this happened with it happened with Lancelot in the last video. Like people who use that really like choppy poetic language, when taken all together, I think it sounds really nice, or it has the potential to sound really nice. But when you take it one sentence at a time, sometimes it can be underwhelming. So I think it definitely ranks above, fortunately, the milk, which is just, about what's in the fridge. The Talisman is still like a very bland opening sentence. I think I'm going to put it there, but I'm going to put it under the primroses were past, because I think that tells us a little something about Watership Down. So we're going to put that there. I'm going to pull up another of my favorite books from last year, and that is Red Country by Joe Abercrombie. This is a standalone from the First Law series. It is my favorite standalone from the First Law series and my second favorite First Law book. And I love Joe Abercrombie's writing. It is hilarious and dark and so good. But I don't remember what the first... I'm sorry. What the first sentence is. The first sentence is gold. That's it. There's a period. There's no comma. That line of dialogue is the first sentence. So, the rest of it is great. The rest of the opening paragraph, the first page, so funny. Really pulls you in. However, there's not a lot that I can do. There's not a lot I can do with that. I'm sorry, Red Country. I'm sorry. Here you go. Here you go. I have hope. Piranesi is giving me hope. I think a cloud of dog hair just flew up as I shook it, but this book is beautiful. The writing is beautiful. The story is haunting. It pulls you in. It's so atmospheric. I'm depending on it to have a good opening line. And actually, Susanna Clark's other book was in the other video, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, because I have not read that. And I think it was kind of middle of the road. But Piranesi, I have faith. I wish I could remember. Like, this is telling me how poorly I remember opening lines. Like, I didn't read Piranesi that long ago. I'm scared to look. Chapter 1. When the moon rose in the 3rd northern hall, I went to the 9th vestibule. Oh no. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, vestibule. I'm going to say that, and you can either make fun of me or encourage me as you're watching. I'm going to go back to the beginning now. When the moon rose in the third northern hall, I went to the ninth vestibule to witness the joining of three tides. I feel vindicated by Piranesi because that is a weird, very confusing opening line. It makes very little sense. It plunges you into an unknowing or unknown setting with absolutely no bearings, feeling like you are totally lost, which is perfect because that is exactly how you should feel when you start Piranesi. And if you don't know anything about Piranesi, don't ever look into anything other than that first line because you should go in feeling like you are totally lost in the dark. I like it. I need to reread the first line of Swords Point because I need to know which one I'm going to put further up. Like it's a different style, right? Because this is just nice. Like the writing just sounds lovely, but this is cool and like weird. And which one do I care about more? I don't know. Oh no. This is a better problem than not knowing where to put them because they're all so terrible, which is the problem I had last time. When the moon rose in the third northern hall, I went to the ninth. Three tides. I'm going to put this one second, I think. I think it's cool and weird, but I like the beautiful writing in this one. Here you go. Next up, I decided to choose the book that came in second as my favorite read of last year, which is The Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. That would be the English translated name. This is a Chinese fantasy story that I love. And like I said, it was my second favorite book that I read last year. And I do know what the first line in this one is because, again, it's like kind of an iconic first line. If you have read the story and you know about the story, then it's a great first line. But the first line is, "Rejoice, Wei Wuxian is dead." And if you read the back of the book, you know that Wei Wuxian is the main character of The Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. So for a book that is titled that and is about this man, I think that that's an excellent opening line. Like, not only is our main character dead, people are happy. They're having a party because he is dead, which is intriguing. It makes you want to know, like, why did he die? Why are people happy? Are we going to be happy that he comes back? Is this going to be a good person to follow, a bad person to follow? To me, it opens up a lot of questions, and as you gain context, that line will come to mean many different things to you. But I think that it is a great line. And I think even without having the context of the novel, a book opening up with your main character, like people celebrating the demise of your main character, is always a fun opening. So I really like it. I'm going to try not to show favoritism, and I'm going to put it under Piranesi because I still think that that like weird, like being dropped into this strange place is also a really good opening. But Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation is also pulling its weight there. Oh no. Goodness. I'm not feeling good about the stack. Next, we have The Hobbit. Everybody knows the opening line to The Hobbit, but I don't want to say it wrong, so I'm still going to open it up. And I'm already distressed about where I'm going to put it because I also think that this is an iconic opening line. And I think that the whole first paragraph is so whimsical and fun and kind of introduces you to the type of story that you are getting. But it's really hard to separate it from the nostalgia. In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. Like, I feel like that's the narration of my childhood. Like, that's the opening line as, like, to my memories. It unlocks, like, a core memory for me. Like, going, like, I fling back in time and remember the first time that I heard that line. But how to judge it on its own as a first line. This is hard. This is way harder for very different reasons than last time. Okay, it's definitely better than Watership Down. Tagana's got the 2 moons, which I think A Hole in the Ground of the Hobbit and the 2 moons of Tagana are accomplishing the same thing. They are telling us that this is a fantasy story. In this Tagana, we are in a strange land, beautiful land with multiple moons. In this one, it tells us we're in a strange land with cool creatures, and we're probably going to find out what a hobbit is and what a hobbit does. So I do think that the Hobbit probably does belong down here, Is it more compelling to me than the Moons? Yes, because it's a Hobbit. And I think even if I didn't know what a Hobbit was and I didn't have the love for Hobbits that I do, I would still be more intrigued by a magical or mythological or fantasy creature than a fantasy setting. So we're going to put the Hobbit up above. There we go. Logic. This is really worrying me. All right. The next book comes from my favorite fantasy standalones, which is funny because it's not really a standalone, but it's my rules when I made that video. And that is The Hero and the Crown by Robin McKinley, which is technically a book from a fantasy duology, but it works very well as a standalone. And this is about a young princess. And I just slammed that down on my ankle, which really hurt. It's been a really long time since I read The Hero and the Crown. I do not remember how it opens. I do really like Robin McKinley's writing. I think that she has excellent prose. I think that she's a great fantasy author, and a lot of her stuff gets lumped into YA. And I think probably a lot of it does technically qualify as YA because it is about young people, but her books are gorgeous, and I think that more people should read them or rediscover them. So make this your start. Chapter 1. She could not remember a time when she had not known the story. She had grown up knowing it. I think that's a pretty good start. I think it's a pretty compelling beginning, especially knowing that we're going into a fantasy story. I love stories about stories. So if anything that opens up with a story that the character knows, that presumably we are going to be told, is automatically going to pull me in. Like, I like that. I eat that up. That is something that I do enjoy. So I like it. Is it the best? No, it's not the best. Is it the worst? No. I think it is better than My Father is a King and the Son of Kings. It's probably better than The Primroses too. So, goodness. We're going to put it below Tagana because I think, more impressed by the imagery in the first line. I don't know if that's the first time I use the word imagery, but it's probably the word I was looking for the whole time and couldn't find. But I think that it's best that it ends up there. All right. Next, we have The Night Circus, which is one of my favorite fantasy books, one of my favorite fantasy standalones, a very polarizing book on BookTube. Many people hate this book. I love this book. It is very atmospheric. It is light on characterization. It is light on plot. I don't care. I really don't care. I love the writing and I love the book. I think I remember the first line of this one, and I think that it is very simple and somewhat underwhelming. I think this is another case where like the first paragraph is really lovely, but for anybody who watched my last video, people felt that I was unnecessarily harsh on a book about a pirate in a basement. And that was Erin Morgenstern's other book, The Starless Sea. So we will see if I have the same scorn for her opening line of The Night Circus. This is going to make me want to read The Night Circus because it's been a couple years and I do really love it. Yes, I did know what the first line was. The circus arrives without warning. So when I say it's underwhelming, like it's knowing what I know about the rest of the book, and even like that first page, if you take it as a whole, because the first chapter is called Announcement, and it reads like an announcement, and it really, really pulls you in, and it's very vibrant, and it really brings the story alive in your mind, which is really hard for me. I am not a very visual person, so it's hard for me to picture things, but The Night Circus does its best with me. And so it doesn't live up to the rest of that, but it's still not bad. Like, The Circus Arrives Without Warning is... It does capture that sense of whimsy. It is telling you something about the story, but it's not phenomenal. Like, it's not great. It's not, show-stopping. Where are we going to put it? Oh, this is the worst part, is deciding where to put stuff. Like, I'm going to definitely put it below Tagana, but did I like it more than She Always Knew the Story? or the primroses. It's kind of like similar, that like very short, choppy sentence that tells you something. But I think it's kind of exciting. Like, we know that it's unexpected. And so it's opening you up to this air of mystery, which I don't think the Watership Down one does. Maybe it does a little bit. Ugh, this is so hard. Where am I going to put it? I think I'm going to put it under Tagana. I don't know. Is this a bad choice? Maybe it is. Oh, gosh. I don't know. Oof. Book Jenga is hazardous. Next, we have The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. I'm going to make a statement. Is this my favorite book by Neil Gaiman? Oh, we have two Neil Gaimans, because fortunately The Milk is on here as well, which is also one of my favorites by Neil Gaiman. But this book is beautiful. If you have not read The Ocean at the End of the Lane, do it. Listen to the audiobook if that's what you like, because he narrates it, and it's beautiful. I love this book. Look how short it is. What a favor you'll be doing yourself by putting a beautiful short book on your TBR. You're welcome. I just made your May so much better, because you're going to go out and you're going to put The Ocean at the end of the lane on your TBR, and you're going to love it too. Let me tell you the first line so you can build your expectations. All right. I'm glad I built your expectations. Line 1. It was only a duck pond out at the back of the farm. So, if I promise you that as you read that entire page, that sentence becomes a lot more beautiful, you'll have to believe me. So please do, because it does. But the line, it was only a duck pond, doesn't give you a lot to go on, which is why this is a dumb experiment. And why did I film a second shot at this video? It was only a duck pond out at the back of the farm. I mean, it's better than gold. I think it beats the orange juice. And I think it even beats the very, generic first line of the Talisman. My father was a king and the son of kings. It was only a duck pond out at the back of the farm. What am I going to do? I think I will put it under the Song of Achilles, which is, oh God. This is what we got into in the last video of trying to precariously balance all of these. Okay. There we go. All right. Up next, hope to God this doesn't have an amazing first line, because it is a heavy illustrated edition of Assassin's Apprentice, first book in the Farseer trilogy, one of my favorite fantasy trilogies. This will be everyone's opportunity to pile on this video and ask me why I have not read Ship of Destiny yet. I don't know. I don't like myself, I guess, because I know that I'm going to enjoy that book and I just keep not reading it. So I apologize to you and to myself for that, but Assassin's Apprentice is the book that I decided to go with, and I don't remember what the first line was, but Robin Hobb's writing is beautiful. I just don't remember how this opens. Chapter 1. Okay, actually, it opens with a passage from a history that someone is writing. So it says, a history of the 6 duchies is of necessity a history of its ruling family, the Farseers. Thank you, Robin Hobb, for opening your book that way, because that's not a particularly grand opening line. I believe it probably belongs somewhere near the bottom of the list, which is good, because it will now anchor some of these other books. But where at the bottom does it belong? Poor Fortunately the Milk and Gold from Red Country. I feel like it's on an equivalent level with the Talisman line, because they're both not saying a lot. They're both pretty generic openings, but the writing is just nicer here. My apologies to Stephen King and Peter Straub. I actually quite like the writing in the book, but I don't think it compares here. So I think we're going to put it below Ocean at the End of the Lane, but above the Talisman, which is going to be, I don't know if it's going to be a multi-step process or... No, let's see. I'm going to Oh gosh. All right. Oh. Here we go. Oh no. Oh no. I think we gotta try to counterbalance some of these. There's only one more. I don't know where it's gonna go, but hopefully it'll be okay. So, I actually have the wrong book. So we're gonna have to take a pause because I wanted to pick the first book in the Long Price Quartet, and I must have had them on my shelf in the reverse order because I took volume 3 and 4. So I will be back. I did not have to go far because it was right behind me. But here we go. The first book in the Long Price Quartet, A Shadow in Summer. This is one of the best fantasy series that I have ever read. And I know that everybody who watches my channel already knows that because everybody who watches my channel watches Alan's channel. And Alan talks about this series all the time, how much he loves it. It is amazing, and it makes me sad that more people have not read it. I wish more people would because it is truly unique and breathtaking. But is the first line unique and breathtaking? That is the question, and I don't remember. So let's find out. There is again a prologue. Something fell down behind me. Don't know what it was. All right, the first line. Ota took the blow on the ear, the flesh opening under the rod. Okay. That's a bit of a gruesome opening. But, I don't know. Like, if you like this opening line, then what does that say about you? Yes, I love it when my books open with some violence. And I know it's against a child because I know the character is a child at the beginning of this book, but you cannot glean that from context. But still, I feel like I'm like, okay, excellent. Where do we put the physical punishment of a child amongst these opening lines? But it is, it is pretty vivid. The flesh opening under the rod, that definitely paints a picture. It is in action at the beginning. I don't know. Like, lines like this are so hard to judge because it's not really telling us a whole lot, but where are we going to put it? Oh, gosh. I don't know why I'm being so nice to the Watership Down one. Probably because I like it so much, but I do think that it's a good opening line. I am going to... I don't know. I think I'm going to put it down low. I don't know. Why did this one have to be last? Ota took the blow on the ear, the flesh opening. Like, it does make me want to know, like, why is someone hitting this person? Why did he take the blow on the ear? Like, why? Why is this happening? Oh, I'm going to... You know what? I'm going to put it below Watership Down. Judge me in the comments. It's fine. I'm biased. Who knew? That is going to be it. That is going to be my final countdown. I'm going to scurry behind the camera and make sure you can see all of the books in sequence. From first to last. From Swords Point to Red Country. Give me one sec. All right, here they are. All of them, you could not see them before. I did not have the camera pointed all the way down, but here they are. They range from Swords Point to Red Country. I don't know, like, probably if I had predicted before I went into this, I would have assumed that Swords Point would have been near the top just because I know the style of the writing, but I probably would have predicted Tagana to be at the top. Piranesi, definitely. Probably Assassin's Apprentice. I didn't think Red Country would end up at the bottom because a lot of Joe Abercrombie's openers are really good. Like, he has really funny, catchy opening lines, and I think in this case it's just that it was dialogue, and so it was just that one word that snuck in, but I definitely would have predicted that would have been higher on the list, but it goes to show that it is very difficult to judge how much you're going to enjoy a book or how much the writing appeals to you based on the opening line. I will say that this was way more successful than the first ones. There's something to be said for the writing in your favorite books. It is obviously something that is going to appeal to you as a reader, And it was much harder to rank these ones because they are all books that I really enjoy. But this was fun. Hopefully it was fun to watch. There wasn't quite as much despair as the first video, so maybe it'll be less entertaining. I don't know. But I will see you all with another video soon. Bye!